Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Post-Apocalyptic Nonfiction Book Club. We'll just wait a minute or here and see if anybody shows up. Right now, it looks like there's nobody in the chat, so there's nobody here. But gosh, I'm really enjoying this book. It's fairly thin, gives a lot of great ideas on post-apocalyptic survivalism and some great ideas. I strongly recommend this book to anyone and everyone. Please get a copy. And I think it has some extremely valid points. We will get in a couple things where it's author's opinion, and opinions are like everybody has one, and there are going to be those, and for obvious reasons, he doesn't give specific recommendations except for one, simply because it becomes a matter of taste and preference. Hello, Jay Creature. No problem. But anyhow, there is he won't make a recommendation as far as an individual firearm, a long gun, but he does. Hello, Little Lone Prepper. Hello, Scott Hummer. And but he does make a recommendation as far as a sidearm. So we can kind of get into that, and that's a lot of opinion. I'm Army, so of course in the Army we always have a primary weapon is going to be a rifle, whereas we seldom have a sidearm, although that's becoming, I think, since I retired, a lot more common. As an officer who was getting in and out of it's called the TCAC, Tactical Control and Analysis Center, I had a sidearm, whereas, a lot of my enlisted soldiers had long guns. But, hello, Linda Bopp and Scott Hummer. So I have my preference of sidearm only because it's what I used and what I have experience with. They replaced the M1911 with the M9 and then later the M17 and M18 series 9mm handguns. So the M9 was Beretta, and then that's been replaced by M17 and 18, and that's Sig Sauer. Gosh, I love those. They are phenomenal. I would love to get one. But let's just go ahead and get started here in the book. Gosh, these were two kind of exciting chapters. We'll try to get through them so that we can, and then have some discussion around it. But it starts off with chapter 7, and so we're going to go into security. So the first thing he brings up is a very interesting point, and things are just getting more and more dangerous out there on the streets. I witnessed an actual physical assault at a stoplight. I mean, we were sitting there, and there's two lanes that turn left, and then there's two lanes that go straight. I was in the right lane so that when I completed that left-hand turn, I'd be in the right lane going over the other side. This yellow sports car just comes screeching up, skids to a hop, kind of half sideways. Guy gets out of his car, reaches into the trunk of his car and pulls out a tool, a tire tool. And then he walked in front of my pickup and walked over and, started accosting the guy in the car to my right, this little black sports car. And the guy was saying, well, what was I supposed to do? And so I had to call 911, but gosh, people are not as acceptable of each other as we have been in the past. I think people's tempers get extremely hot, extremely quick. Our triggers are just, everybody's on edge, and the country is dissolving. Not only is the country dissolving, but people are dissolving. So anyhow, hello, Triple G Farms. One of the fantastic quotes that I love kicking off chapter 7 is on page 53. He says, "We the people, there isn't a we mentality anymore, nor has there been for a long time. Civil discourse is no longer practiced. We don't discuss anymore, we fight." And I've noticed there was a YouTube short, and this woman approached somebody who was a pro 2A, And she started yelling and cussing at her. She says, "Why?" She says, "Because you're for guns, and nobody needs those assault rifles." And so the girl said, "Well, what is an assault rifle?" And the woman couldn't define it. And so she got really upset and then got really emotional, flipped her the bird, cussed her out, and walked off. And the young lady who was trying to support the Second Amendment, all she was asking was, please define what an assault rifle is so that if it offends you, we can now have a discussion about it. But the woman couldn't define what it was. And so she wanted to argue about it. And we have lost our civility as individuals in this country, and our ability to have a common civil discourse with each other. It's just unbelievable. Then on page 54, he talks about when tensions rise, people become even more dangerous and unpredictable than they are now. And he talks about the Johari window, which is basically the what you don't know type of a thing. And we just don't know. People are so unpredictable. We don't know how they're going to react and what their triggers are going to be out in public or in private or anything else. And things are just getting very, very dangerous and unpredictable. And so we have to have our head on a swivel. We have to be aware, a lot more aware of our surroundings now than we ever have been in the past. And I think that adds to the tension that we're experiencing as individuals and as a country. And then on page 55, he talks about, if you're going to be assaulted, or if you're going to try to do something, make an attack, that the three pillars of a successful attack are the element of surprise, speed, and violence of action. So we're going to talk about it first as an offensive thing. Then we're going to talk about it as a defensive thing. So number one is the element of surprise. You don't want anybody to know that you are going to take the action that you are going to do. You want them to be unprepared to defend against it because of the speed with which you attack, or the surprise that they don't know what it is. Then when you commence the attack, you want it to be speed. Remember the 100-hour war, Desert Storm, 1991, January 16th through the 18th, 1991. Shock and awe, and just, 7 divisions plowing into Kuwait and then into Iraq. And the speed with which we did it was just unbelievable. So we didn't have the element of surprise. They weren't sure when we were going to do it. They knew we were going to do it, but not exactly when. But we did do speed, and then we did use the third one, which was violence of action. And that was an overwhelming shock and awe of the amount of violence that was unleashed. And so that's basically what you need to do if you're going to be on the assault. And so then, hello, Red Scout and Holly Ivans. I hope that's correct. And so then, if you're going to defend, then knowing that those are the 3 things that make for a successful attack, how you counter that successful attack? Well, they don't have surprise if you have your eyes on a swivel, if you have your head on a swivel, if you're constantly aware of your surroundings. In the book, he talks about an example where a woman is walking to her car. There are 2 people together. One of them departs. The other guy has his eyes on her. She loses contact of the other guy. He goes around the cars, comes back behind her, and then he holds her while the guy in front assaults her. And, that is a very typical thing. And so you've got to keep your eyes on both. You got to be aware of everybody that's around you. And then that they're going to come up with they're going to have a lot of speed when they do it. So you've got to be prepared to be just as fast and counter their violence of action with your own level of violence of action. And that's going to be, the key to your successful defense. Then He talks about the reaction gap or tactical social distancing, TSD. The police department trains that that's typically going to be 10 to 15 feet. So if you have to draw a weapon from a holster and react, then in order to do that successfully, because of the average running time of an adult human being, if you don't have at least 10 to 15 feet between the two of you, they can be on top of you before you can draw and aim your weapon. So that's what they call the tactical social distancing. You want to keep people outside of that circle so that you have the time to react to whatever they're going to do. Now, another counter here is to ensure that you have whatever defense you want to have readily available. Now, with a firearm, that's kind of difficult. You don't want to walk around with it in your hand. But there are other things we'll be talking about here in a couple minutes that can make it a lot easier for you if you're going to be in that kind of a situation where you have to think about defense. I'm sorry. Triple G Firearms, thank you so much. So tomorrow I go to the what's it called? Let me get my thing here. Tomorrow I go to the Georgetown Ministerial Alliance, and so at the Ministerial Alliance, we're talking about a couple things. I'm the representative from the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. And then we also have the Caring Place, which is our local charity. You know, those are the two charities I donate to with the money that you have donated to me. And so we have that semi-monthly meeting tomorrow. And I am quite certain that everybody's going to be thankful for your donations as well as everybody else's for just watching, because 60% of everything that goes into this channel gets donated to those two charities. So thank you very much for that. I still have to drive up to Lampasas so we can have that cup of coffee. So Jay Creature, I don't understand your 21 feet. Okay, I got you. 21 feet. I saw inch, and that's my old eyes. I'm sorry, that's my fault, not yours. And then let me see, where am I? Then on pages 57 and 58, he talks about de-escalating the situation. What can you do? You know, smiling, apologizing. He gives the example of a guy bumps into another guy, and the guy spills his coffee. He says, "Oh man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I really here." And he pulls a $20 bill out and hands it to the guy. He says, "This is for another cup of coffee and to get your clothing cleaned." And he's, I'm really, really sorry. If you are sincere, and if you are doing it with real humility, that if you make a conciliatory act like that, chances are it will de-escalate the situation. So always think, what can I do? How can I de-escalate the situation rather than escalate the situation? What can I do to soften the impact, or what can I do to mitigate the actions that have been taken? So those are some critical things that you have to be concerned about. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Triple G Farms. Let me see here. Okay, so back to the banners. And so on pages 58 through 60, he talks about, unarmed combatives. I think it's fairly late in the process for any of us to take up any kind of martial arts for unarmed combatives. But that would be the ideal situation, is that you have some training. My wife and I take Tai Chi, which is basically martial arts for old farts. And, that's so the stances that we do, if you speed them up, are a form of combat. But for senior citizens, it's basically a stretching and a coordination series. So as a matter of fact, I was at the Georgetown Recreation Center, 2 weeks ago, and the Georgetown, what is it? The Georgetown Weekly Newspaper they had a picture of me striking the warrior pose for Tai Chi in the on the front page of the newspaper, and it was, please get involved in the Georgetown Recreation Center, and so I think that's kind of neat. So I got 3 copies, one for each of my grandchildren. But anyhow, so I think it may be too late for most people to pick that up. One of the things I would encourage you to do, especially if you're senior, is get yourself a good cane. And there are plenty of good cane fighting videos on YouTube. You can learn how to use a cane as a weapon. And most people are not going to think that a senior citizen with a cane would know how to use it as a weapon. But I think that's ideal. It's not mentioned in the book. That's Lee's personal opinion. And that's why I quite often, and of course with my titanium hip, every once in a while walking with a cane is kind of useful anyway. So with the limp and the cane, I think I've got it made. Then he talks about edged weapons. So let me give you, this is going to be a giveaway when I get to 10,000 subscribers. But get yourself, this is the Schrade 13SM. So it's still in the box, brand new, has never been used. But this is a necklace or what they call a neck knife. So it comes with this, and then you put it around your neck, and it hangs, in the center of your chest. And so now, make sure I have this on the outside. And then all you have to do is, if you get attacked, you can pull, and that's 2 fingers for the handle, and you pull it, and you've got a nice little knife here that you can use as a stabbing weapon. So just having a neck knife is going to be something very advantageous to you to protect yourself in most situations. He gives a recommendation for edged weapons about knife fighting, and it's a fantastic book, he says. And I'll try to find that on Amazon and put it down here in the show notes. I hope you do know that I do put show notes in the about or details down below for most of the shows, and I do also do that for all of my videos. So if you want more information or what other products Lee talks about, always go down there into those descriptions, and there'll be a link for it. So then he also talks about impact weapons. So one of the things that, and you can go, well, let's go back to the edged weapons. I don't really consider this an edge weapon, but you can get it for a keychain. This is a tactical pin. So the tactical pins, and this is titanium. Number one, if you put the pin itself out, if I can get it out, there we go. If you have the pin out, that can become a stabbing weapon. But there's also this glass breaker here at the other end that becomes a pointed, very, very sharp stabbing weapon. So you can have this in your hand. You can either stab like this, or you can use it to stab, like this. And that's going to be very, very good for you for defenses. There's also Frog & Company, and I am an affiliate for Frog & Company, and so that link is down below. This is a kit that I got from my wife, and so it consists of 3 elements. It has a keychain with a super alarm. I'm not going to do it because it would destroy our eardrums here. But it does have a fantastic alarm on it. And then it also has a jar of pepper spray. And this is called pepper gel. So this is the more solidified one, so that you don't have to worry about wind blowing it back into your face. And then it also comes with a combination flashlight and zapper. So I don't want to zap anybody with it right now, but it's you press the skin when it makes contact, and you have your finger on the contact, and it just has several thousand volts of electricity that will convince the person not to mess with you. So this is available. I think it's about $80 on Frog & Company. So I strongly recommend that. This is something that you can have the components of. Don't carry the whole kit. You want to put the components in your hand and use those when appropriate. Okay, gosh, 12 comments since the last time I checked. Let me see here. You don't want anything to do with your my stabby. Okay. Uh, okay, so Jay Creature says that I'm not sure how to interpret this. The zapper is not as fun as you think. So I don't know if that's on the offensive or defensive side. The drive stun sucks, but you can fight through it. So does that mean that it's not powerful enough to knock you out or debilitate you, and the person can keep on coming? Or I don't understand. If you could elaborate on that a little bit, Jay Creature, I would really appreciate it. Um, okay, so then from there, he goes into on pages 60 and 61, firearms. My personal opinion. Now, he talks about the rifle and he talks about the pistol. So for the rifle, uh, he talks primarily make sure that you have a common caliber, semi automatic, and that you can have the ability to have 20 or 30 round magazines. There's a lot of discussion on whether you want to use the AK platform, the AR platform. I've had the Ruger Mini 14 for a long time. That's the same caliber basically. And that's a fantastic platform. It's based off of the M14 platform. So we were just transitioning when I was, first year in the Army. We were transitioning over from the M14 to the M16. So I know how to disassemble it and clean it. That was fairly easy. And then, of course, the AR-15 platform, I can do that. I can disassemble and reassemble with my eyes blindfolded in less than 60 seconds. So that's a good platform too. He doesn't go into calibers. He says because getting into calibers or platforms, whether it's going to be blowback or gas operated or anything like that, that's all personal preference. And I would recommend that you have the same platform consistency in ammunition and hopefully consistency in platform across your group. So that number one, you have consistency in ammunition, and number two, you have consistency in magazines. I think that would be the primary consideration I would have for a group. Is making sure you have going back to the blunt weapons. I forgot the impact weapons on the previous page. I forgot to mention this, and this is available. I got this one. I got one of these for each member of my family on eBay, and this is called a monkey's fist. So this is a 1-inch steel ball bearing that's been encased in paracord, and then it's got a key ring holder up top. And so this is about a 6-inch length, just enough where you can get it. You're going to have your hands here with the with your keys in your hand, and you don't want to go with the big, whopping over. You just a real good quick flick of the wrist, and you can do plenty of damage. So let me tell you, if you get hit in the head with this 1-inch steel ball, with just a flick of the wrist, you are going to see a couple stars here and there. So I strongly recommend this for a keeping your hand defense. You're not going to be making big swinging motions with it. These are going to be small, subtle motions, but believe me, they will have an impact. Okay, and then on page 61, he gets into the personal self-defense sidearm, and he says he's not going to make any recommendations that as long as you get a Glock and it's 9mm, then that's the only thing he's going to say. Well, that's fine. I know that was probably the most popular weapon sold at the beginning of the lockdown. As a matter of fact, I was standing in line to pick up another weapon that I had special ordered at my favorite gun store here in Round Rock, and there was a long line. I mean, probably 12, 14 people. And this woman was standing in line. She was going to buy a Glock 19 because that's what her dad told her to do. She was an obstetrician, gynecologist, OBGYN doctor. And I said, have you ever fired a firearm before? She said, no. And they didn't have any ammunition. So she was buying this Glock 19, no training, no ammunition, no nothing. And she's just getting it because her dad told her to. And she didn't know how to operate it. She didn't even know how to get around into the chamber. And, what we find is because there is no external safety, you've got the double action trigger for the Glock series of handguns. There are no external safeties. That people do not like that. And that was one of the most returned or pawned guns after the lockdown was let go. As people were fairly disenchanted with this. You could probably get one fairly inexpensively at a pawn shop. I would use a 9mm. If you talk to Steve Smith, he's the author of the Stonemont series. As a matter of fact, and his newest book just came out. I ordered it. It was released Sunday. I ordered it Sunday, and it arrived Monday. And so we're going to have a special April discussion of Hostages of Fortune, Steve Smith's new book. He's also going to join us on that book review on Thursday, the 20th of April, and he'll be there to discuss answer any questions or anything you might have about the book at that time. So that's great. But he was an undercover narcotics officer, and so he prefers 40 caliber sidearms, and he just says that that does more damage than a 9mm. I was trained on the M1911A1, which is a 45 caliber. Now, the disadvantage of that is you only have 8 rounds, 1 in the chamber, 7 in the magazine. But 45 caliber, we switched to it because at that time we were fighting the Moras in the Philippines, and the 357 that was standard issue for the military was not stopping the Moras as they were coming in to fight the Americans. So they needed a slower, heavier bullet, and that's why they came out with the M1911, and it will knock you off your feet. And so that's my preference, but that's my personal preference. So, but remember, I'm primarily a long gun guy. I believe that the rifle is the primary tool, and your pistol is only a secondary in case you for some reason can't get to your long gun. Okay, so Jay Creature says that the reason is he's never seen anybody go unconscious. I don't think so either. I think the primary. So let me go here. Tasers have probes. The open contact type you're showing causes pain, but I'll let you hit me with it. It's like super bee sting, sucks, but nothing like probes. I will not and get probed again ever. Okay, so you're talking about basically like the. What do they call it? The taser that has the contacts that actually stick inside you is being far more effective. Never seen them go unconscious from taser probes or from the dry stun. Yeah, I haven't either, but I haven't seen that many, to be honest with you. So I'll take your word for that because I just don't. I just don't have that much experience with it. Oh wow, we have a new follower here, a new person added to the group here, and let me see. I'm going to try this as Dusolin Victus, and so welcome, and he says people underestimate the Mini 14 as a medium range rifle. I wholeheartedly agree. Now I prefer either 308 or 700, Remington 700 for a little bit longer range. But as far as medium range, the Mini 14 and the 30-30 are outstanding guns. I think the 308 and the 30-06 are comparable long range weapons as well. Now for a short range, one of the biggest mistakes I ever made was complying with government edicts. I had a Uzi carbine, and back in the middle 90s, it was declared illegal, and I didn't read it all the way through, and I just saw that it was illegal, so I turned it in. But what I found out was it was only illegal to buy a new one. It was grandfathered that you could keep the old ones, and so, oh God, that was such a fine weapon. So it was blowback. It was very easy to maintain. It was a great lightweight weapon. It fired the same caliber as your pistol ammunition. It was a pistol caliber carbine, just a phenomenal little weapon. And of course, the carbine had the longer 18-inch barrel. So it was a great little weapon, and my wife loved it. So um, I just loved it. So consider another consideration if you're going to primarily be in an urban environments, short ranges inside the city. Consider getting a pistol caliber carbine in the same caliber as your primary weapon. When I was in high school, one of my friends bought the Ruger. I think it was the Red Hawk pistol carbine series. So it's 44 Magnum carbine and pistol. So I know for a fact you can get pistol carbine combinations in 44 Magnum. You can get them in 357 Magnum. You can get them in 357, and you can get them in 9mm. I know for sure those four calibers have both carbine and pistol, and use the pistol caliber stuff. Hello, the alchemist. Welcome. Um, so Thesis makes a superb 1911, and I don't doubt that at all. Uh, yeah, yeah. So we are in agreement there. Fantastic. Welcome and hello. Let me see here. So, little lone prepper, let me tell you, my wife was in a real bad car wreck July 1st of 2000. And I mean, I almost lost her. She, her pelvis was broken in 7 places, 3 breaks to her left arm, severe brain concussion and traumatic brain injury, skull fracture. The seatbelt almost amputated her breast. I mean, it was a major thing. It was touch and go for a couple weeks, and um, so her left arm, the break is right up in here. There's a little bone right here that is kind of curved, and that bone has never healed even now. And so they're afraid to go in and do any more surgery on it because the ganglion of nerves that controls the hand is right there, and that's impacted. So they're afraid that if they go in and try to repair that they could touch the nerves and cause her to lose her hand. And right now she has full use of her hand. So one of the things that I do is she and I practice, and I have taught her to grab hold of the slide of her pistol with her left hand. So that's her weak hand. Don't push the slide with your left hand. Don't try to do that. Grab hold of the slide with your left hand and push with your right, so that way you're using your strong arm to do all the pushing instead of using your weak arm. All you're doing for your weak arm is using it to hold, and it works for her. She's able to do it. So I would recommend that you try that. um, let me see. Choppy feet. Is this just one person doing that, or is this going to be a problem that I need to shut down one or two more windows? um, Okay, so we've got two people saying that TSIS makes fantastic pistols for the price. Yes, I love the M1 carbine. The problem is getting ammunition for it. I just I couldn't find ammunition for it. Now, yes, lever guns, 357, 38 special, and 44 Magnum are fantastic. And so Henry makes a wide variety. Henry also makes one called the Long Ranger, LONG Ranger, and you can get that in 308. You can also get it in 5.56, and it's got a different bolt action on it, but it is side loading and side ejecting, which I do prefer in a lever action over the tube loading or the top ejecting or something like that. Uh, okay. Oh yeah, I know. I was HR director in a hospital for a while. Uh, wow, that's neat to know, Jay Creature. Okay, So back to the banners. Where was I? So we're talking about okay, and so now we go into securing the homestead. And he says, avoid lines of drift. And now, lines of drift are defined as basically the golden horde. What routes are they typically going to take? So avoid being close to a U.S. highway and interstate. You want to stay at least a half mile to 1 mile off of an interstate or a major toll road or a U.S. highway or anything like that. He says it's best to be back from the road where you can't be seen. Well, for most of us who live in suburbia, we're going to be on these secondary and tertiary roads. So you have to come into the neighborhood in order to do it. Now, up until just recently, there was only one point. No, there were two. One was through the church and the other was through another road. But we only had 1 or 2 points of ingress and egress. And now we've opened up a new neighborhood. So there's going to be a third point of ingress and egress. But those will be fairly easy to control. So we can avoid lines of drift, and that is the golden horde escaping the city and going out. Everybody's planning on bugging out. So if everybody else bugs out and you're hunkered down, they're going to try to bypass you, and they might try to do something. So make sure you have your home well taken care of. Then he talks about pressure testing, and so pressure testing basically. Juscelin Invictus, yes, absolutely. I love Henry. Now Henry was the designer for Winchester, believe it or not. And but my hunting rifle is a Marlin, and the reason is because at the time that I got it, Winchester was side loading, which I prefer, but it was top ejecting, so you couldn't put a scope on it. And then Henry was tube loading. So you had to load from the end of the tube, I have that spring loaded piston that you put in. And then it was side ejecting, which I prefer because you can put a scope on it. The only one that had both side loading and side ejecting back in the ancient times when I was younger was the Marlin. So that was my choice, was getting a Marlin. Now Marlin's been bought out by Ruger. And I've heard some complaints. I don't know the validity of them. I've heard some complaints that the quality of Marlin has gone downhill since Ruger acquired them. They also moved the manufacturing facility from Connecticut down to, I believe it's North Carolina. And that may be part of the problem, was the moving of the factory and getting everything retooled and reset up and everything else. Do we really think people will make it out that far? I don't know. If you want my personal opinion, this is strictly my personal opinion. I don't have anything to justify it. I don't have anything I can show you other than Katrina in New Orleans. And I'm going to say that people have a tendency to stick to what they know. And I think that the vast majority of people will avoid evacuation or bugging out, that they will try to hunker down where they are, and then they're going to start duking it out for resources that are precious inside of that area. So in major downtown metropolitan areas, and I think there's going to be a lot of fighting and a lot of conflict internal to the cities that's going to greatly reduce the population. Then maybe after a month to 6 weeks of all this internal conflict inside the major metropolitan downtown, highly urbanized, dense population areas, then once all the stuff is consumed in that area, then they're going to start their eviction, looking for other things to acquire. So that's my personal opinion. And I'm not willing to stand on it and say, let's have an argument over it. I'll defend that position to my death. Nah, that's just my way of thinking. So, you can have a different opinion, and I could probably find a lot of validity in what you have to say as well. I don't know what Dunham's is. That must be a sporting goods store somewhere outside of Texas. Um, So yeah, another Marlin guy. Yeah, I think they basically saved them. Uh-oh. Oh, it's Canadian Prepper. Canadian Prepper put out an alert, and the title is NASA Scientist Issues Stark Warning. Um, yes, yes. And I believe that New Haven is where Henry was. Either Henry or Ruger or both. And they moved because of they wanted to find a more gun-friendly state. We were hoping Ruger was going to move here to Texas. We were in the final um, countdown as far as where they were going to move to. And I think they moved to North Carolina, but they did have to escape Connecticut. Okay. Um, so pressure testing, we don't know what we don't know. So one of the things that we need to do is get training in how to react to things. You know, um, so if you have tested something, so for example, one of the things they do to make sure you have confidence in your gas mask in the military is you put your gas mask on, you go inside this cabin, and they have a candle burning on the inside, and they have CS gas that they've deployed inside the cabin, and so you go in and everything looks normal, and you think, well, the candle's burning, so there's nothing in here, and then they have you take your gas mask off and give your name, rank, and social security number, and once you've done all that, you've got all the air out of you, so you get a good suck of it into you. Plus, it's already burning your eyes, and then you get to run out and throw up into the barrel that they have outside. But what that does is that provides a level of assuredness that the gas mask does work. So that's really great. And so one of the things you want to do is test everything in a extreme case scenario. So the best time to test your camping gear is during a rainstorm. How am I going to survive? How am I going to cook during a rainstorm or during a windstorm? It's those terrible conditions. It's a snow camp that proves whether or not your sleeping bag is a good sleeping bag or not. So, test your stuff, use it, become familiar with it, and make sure that you know what you're doing with it. So that's kind of what he's talking about there. And he says the maximum effective range of an excuse for not going out and testing your gear and not doing what you need to do to learn how to use your gear is 0. So barriers and obstacles, he says, just be sure that the barrier obstacle that you construct can't be used as cover for the enemy to hide behind and shoot at you. In Vietnam, we had all these Gambians, okay? And a Gambian was basically chicken wire with other things put inside. And so that would kind of be a pillar that you could stand behind and shoot at the entrance so that when the enemy came in, you could fire on them. So it was basically a large obstruction that afforded you cover and concealment. The bad thing was that if they came up too close, if they got up to the wire, they could be on the other side of that Gambian, and they're using it for the exact same thing you are. So it now protects them from your fire as much as it protects you. So then when we would retreat from the Gambians, what we would do is we booby trap those, and we would have a C4 pile in the middle of the Gambian so that once we vacated that area, we could blow it up and turn that into one big bomb crater. But, make sure that anything you're using as a barrier or an obstacle can't be used against you. And so the author talks about, wires, using wire as much as possible, because what you want to do, the purpose of a barrier or an obstacle is to detect the presence of somebody. So you put cans with peas or marbles in them, and when they hit the wire, it makes a noise. You want to deter people. If they see it, they say, I don't want to go there. So now you're channeling them into a prospective kill zone. And then you want to delay them. So if you've got wire on the ground and it's a trip wire and you're tripping and their feet can get tangled up, or that you have little pits or anything like that, that's going to delay them. So the longer it takes them to conduct the attack, remember, speed was one of the 3 things they need in the attack. So the more delay you can cause in their attack, the better it is for you, the defender, to use overwhelming odds and to win. And then, of course, is to defend. So sometimes those traps have other things in them that cause them to be a defensive nature. Let me see here what we got. Alchemist says he lives in a little county road way out in the middle of nowhere, California, and have a whole two neighbors. We're preparing for people to move towards us. Hope they don't, but you never know. Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Triple G Farms. If I choose between a lever gun or ARAK, I'm going with a semi-auto. Yes, me too. I would prefer the semi-auto with a 20 or 30 round magazine over any lever action. Simply because, lever action, you're going to be restricted to 6 or 7 rounds, and you can go through those real quick. And the more time you spend shooting, well, let me put it this way: the less time you spend loading, the more time you're spending shooting. How's that for I don't understand why people consciously put themselves in danger, like the ones who went to that area in Mexico and then got kidnapped. I don't either, let alone prepper. I mean, that is part of what we were talking about earlier: is be aware of where you are and avoid danger. If you know it's a hot spot, stay away. There's talks now about us possibly going to war with Mexico over the cartels and everything else. And just think about it. When I was younger, a couple of years ago, a decade or two ago, all the big gangs that you heard about were the norteños and soldaños, the Crips, the Bloods, MS-13. You don't hear about those anymore. Why? Because the cartels from Mexico have not only taken over Mexico, but they've also moved in and are controlling the gangs here in the U.S. So the cartels have really caused a lot of damage. And I'm originally from El Paso, and there are bullet holes in buildings in El Paso because the international border does not stop a bullet that was fired between the federales and the cartels in Juarez. So, there's a lot of stuff going on the border that we're not being totally informed of, but I've got friends from high school that are still there and keep me informed of what's going on in El Paso, at least. There was a woman, a news reporter in El Paso, who was talking about personal self-defense at the 10 o'clock news, and she got, I think, the series, the third episode out of 7, and she was kidnapped by the cartel and dismembered. They found her body, in like 6 or 7 pieces later on, but they don't like things like that. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so he talks about then he prefers Glock 9mm. I prefer 45, but he prefers Glock 9mm. That's just the way it is. Chow time. We got to get through this quick. We got 15 minutes to talk about food. So he talks about the average Somali, and think of them as being extremely undernourished, malnourished. Eats an average of 1,695 calories a day. Let's call it 1,700. So if you plan that out for a year, then you need to store about 165 pounds of rice, 73 pounds of oats, 98 pounds of pinto beans, 98 pounds of garbanzo beans, and 98 pounds of lentils. And just think of the space that's going to occupy. So you're going to need all kinds of storage space wherever it is. This is one of the things that convinces you that you're probably not going to be that mobile. It's not going to be a bug out scenario in most cases. You're going to be better off just staying where you are and having some of the food processes that you have. I did a search, because we're talking about, people are talking an awful lot about growing their own food and sustaining their own food. So last year I had 5 tomato plants. We probably averaged a tomato every 3 days for our family. I had 3 growth bags of potatoes. I maybe got 10 pounds of potatoes. My blueberries and blackberries aren't old enough yet to produce. Hopefully this year they'll start producing. I didn't get any garlic. I didn't get any of my other plants at all. My lettuce and my cabbage got eaten up like you would not believe. My garlic didn't grow. My Brussels sprouts grew, but they didn't bud. I mean, I had all kinds of problems with my garden last year. So I went on AIGPT and I said, hey, how much given do you want? That we want approximately 2,000 calories a day. So that's the top end for women and the bottom end for men. So the Brits say 2,000 for women, 2,500 for men. So I figure if we plan for 2,000 in the middle. So if I wanted to grow 2,000 calories for one person in 1 year, and here are the recommended foods. What space would I need to grow 1 year's worth of foods? And AIGPT said half an acre. Now, most suburban plots are going to be anywhere from a fifth of an acre to a quarter of an acre. And so you're not going to have that half acre. Even if you have a half acre that your house is on, your house is occupying half of that half acre. So you're only going to get a quarter acre. So you're going to get half a year's supply if you use all your available land for food. You'll get a half a year supply for one person, and the other person's going to have to do without. So, this whole thing about we're going to live off of our land, unless you're out in a farming area and you have fertile land, it's probably not going to happen. And then don't forget that besides that, you're going to have to add additional proteins, vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, fats, and salts to your diet just to make sure that you're there. So it's not just the calories, but you got to have a lot of other essential nutrients as well. People say, well, I'm going to go out and go hunting. So my favorite example of this is dove season here in Texas is 2 weeks in the spring and 2 weeks in the fall. And if you're a perfect shot and get one dove with every round of shotgun that you shoot, it takes about 3 doves, in my opinion, to make one meal. So if you've got a family of 4, you need probably somewhere around 10 to 12 doves to feed a family. But now remember, this is only 2 weeks a year. So that means 12 shotgun rounds, if you're a perfect shot, every day for 2 weeks. So 12 times 14, is 144 plus 28, 152, 172 shotgun rounds. So that's a little under 4 boxes of shotgun rounds right there for just those 2 weeks. So if you aren't going to reload, you're going to have to stock an awful lot of ammunition to eat dove in a post-apocalyptic world. Because of hunting, before hunting licenses and everything else, on page 6, they explain that in 1900, white-tailed dove were almost extinct. Jay Creature says MS-13 is still chopping up people in New York. Yeah, I was at the Academy sporting goods store, day before yesterday, and I was looking at ammunition, and right behind me they had this one spear, and I want to get that spear, and then they had the machetes, and so I said, get the bigger one, and you can be enlisted in MS-13 to this guy, and he didn't think it was funny, but anyhow. Okay, just learned how to grow pinto beans. Yes, absolutely. Go to your farmer's market and make friends with somebody who has a farm near you. Start going and learning how they farm, help them on their farm. Make those friendships now before you need them, so that they will know who you are and that you can help them and they will help you in a post-apocalyptic world. Yeah, there's lots of men coming, Holly, that are military age. A lot of Chinese military age, a lot of Russians who are avoiding the draft supposedly of military age, a lot of Arabs of military age. There's an awful lot of single military age men coming across our southern border, and that is frightening. I think that's all the better reason why we need to arm ourselves as well. Um, Jay Creature, when I graduated from high school, I weighed 155. When I graduated from basic training, I weighed 175. So I gained 20 pounds in basic training. My mother was a terrible cook, rest her soul, but she worked nighttime. She was a nighttime manager at Western Union, so we lived primarily off of Arby's, Taco Bell, Kentucky Fried Chicken growing up. So I gained 20 pounds with good food in the Army. So, and that's, I think that's part of the thing, Alchemist, is that, I think a lot of people think they're going to hunt and provide for their family, and they aren't going to be able to. We're going to run out of stock. I will not go in the woods. If there's a whole bunch of people who are not experienced hunters out there shooting, and they're going to shoot at things that they don't know what they are, and they're going to shoot at things at maybe even a deer and not know what's on the other side of a deer and miss and hit something else. How many are going to aim at a deer and instead hit a cow, or worse, hit a human? No, I will not be in that environment if there's a whole bunch of inexperienced people out there with long arms just shooting willy-nilly. I will not put myself in that kind of danger. And we talked about that earlier. How do you avoid danger? So yeah, accidentally farming rabbits. Rabbits, from what I understand, I was talking to one farmer here, and I'm trying to get her to come on to the channel for Monday night discussion, and talk about what's the best farm animals to raise. And she says yes, she agrees with you. Rabbits, and she also says goats. Goats multiply and have more than one billy per litter, so she prefers goats. So Jay Creature has eaten pigeon. I haven't eaten pigeon, but I understand they're quite prolific up there in New York area. Hi, Dragon Slayer. Welcome. You're always welcome. Okay, so let's get back over here. So anyhow, he recommends the Trapper's Bible, and trapping is going to be probably the best thing. And then when he talks about fishing, he and I are in agreement here. I'm not going to sit by the side of the river with my fishing gear and sit there and fish all day. I'm going to get a net or a trap or something. The Boy Scout Field Manual from 1947 shows how to take twigs and put them into the water and build a fish trap. And I think that would be another way. If you don't want to buy a fish net, a gill net, or a cast net, then definitely go with one of the traps. And you can get those. There's all kinds of books that describe how to do that, survival books. But you don't want to waste your time sitting there. You want an efficient way of acquiring food. So a rabbit trap, a squirrel trap, any kind of trapping for small game, and then any kind of gill or net fishing for fish is probably going to be what's going to do you the best good. And then on pages 90 through 93, he goes into a lot of information about edible insects. And he talks about worms being one of the most protein dense of all the insects. So, make sure you have an earthworm colony going. And then on pages 94 through 100, he talks about foraging for greenery and, eating dandelions in your front yard and things like that. And those are things that you're going to have to do. Now, one of the interesting things is, as we're talking about that, remember, now this guy, Angry American, Chris is his actual name. We're doing his book this month for the, we're doing his Going Home series in our fiction book club, and that's the last Thursday of the month. He's been doing an awful lot of information on foraging in his books and a lot about trapping. And then he's also talked a lot about raising pigs and preparing pigs for food. So, I mean, there's a lot of good information in his fiction books. He does an awful lot of teaching about that. So let me see. Okay, so we lived on beans and taters. I didn't hit 100 pounds until I was 6 months into expecting my first child. Wow. Yeah, so, it's hard to believe, but from a 155 scrawny high school senior to 175 when I graduated from basic training. And just recently I topped out at 200. Now, here's the secret. When I was younger, I wore a 32 inch waist and 32 inch inseam trousers, which adds up to 64. And now I wear a 34-30. So it's still 64, just the belly's grown and the legs have shortened, but it still adds up to 64. So that's how I convince myself I'm still the same svelte I was 50 years ago. Um, how do they fare in the heat of summer? We the area where my daughter lives, they call it Rabbit Hill. So here in the 115-degree Texas heat of the summers, we have hares and cottontails like you would not believe. They do extremely well in the heat. They do extremely well. uh, oh, well, we'll pray for you. Um, Yeah, we are Austin area is west of Houston. A lot of people think we're north, but we're actually almost due west of Houston. And so anything that comes up from Corpus Christi, Beaumont, or Houston, we catch that in one way or another for those hurricanes. So we catch the land side of it, the winds and rain, not quite hurricane. I think we've had a couple F1s hit through here as far as hurricanes, but F1 speed winds. But I tell you what, I don't think I could live on the coast and go through what you guys go through. Okay, Alchemist. Take care. Please be safe and have a great one. Jennifer Wilson, there's another new name. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you. Uh, I hope we're not losing Jay Creature too. Maybe he's saying goodnight to the Alchemist. And then Scott. Okay, so that's pretty much those two chapters. One of the things I would like to do is I'd like to recommend that you go ahead and start stocking up on your food. What I'm telling people right now, listen, I make a little bit of money if you buy Nutrient Survival, if you buy Thrive Life, if you buy Algerson Farms on any of the links that'll be down below. I make a little bit of money. If you buy any of the canned goods from Amazon, using the links that I give down below. For example, I put in the Harmony House 15 vegetable pack, and there's 3 servings per vegetable for $49. I put that in a link. But anyhow, I make a little bit of money. But I'm going to be honest with you. Right now, we are so close to us not having any more food supplies available in the stores for whatever reason. I don't want to fearmonger. That I think it's best that you not invest in anything that I make money on. I think it's best for your sake to just make sure you stock up on dry goods, corn, flour, um, rice, beans. Make sure you get some fats. Make sure you get some proteins, canned foods, canned meats, diced ham, tuna, salmon. Um, get some canned chicken, get some chili, get some Chef Boyardee stuff, some SpaghettiOs and Raviolios and all that kinds of stuff. Use your money wisely right now to acquire as much food as you can and mark it and stick it back. There's 2 different ways that people use to put markings on their cans. I prefer, we just opened up a can of tuna today that was from 2016 for tuna salad sandwiches. And so that's 7 years old and it was still fine. And um, so, I put down until the 15th of the month, I always put down the previous month because of stocking. So like anything I'm buying right now, I'm putting 2/23 on the can to show that I bought it in February 23. On the 16th, I'll move that to where now I'm starting to put 3/23. So I give that 2-week allowance for it having sat on the shelf. Probably not realistic, but that's the way I do it. Another way of doing that, and probably a little bit more popular than the way I do it, but I just started mine 50 years ago, and it's hard to change old habits. A lot of people look at the best buy or consume by or whatever date that's printed on the can, and they write that as the date on their can so that they know when to eat it by or best to eat it by. And but whichever method you use, just be consistent. Spend your money wisely. Get those things that are going to help you through. Make sure you have plenty of seeds, even though I say that you can't feed your entire family on a backyard plot. That doesn't mean you can't supplement your family with a backyard plot. So go ahead and get your radishes, potatoes, corn. And Three Sisters works extremely well. So that's corn, and then okra and squash. So the three of them are symbiotic, and they help each other to grow extremely well. Pole beans can be used in place of okra, and that's a lot what the Native Americans did was they would do pole beans using the stalk of the corn to grow up to support it, and then the squash would add nutrients back into the soil for both the corn and the beans. But just come up with some things. What's his name? I think it's Alex, and I forget the name of his channel. He's a Filipino gardener in San Diego, and for an experiment, he did a 20 by 40 plot of wheat in his backyard. By the time he got his wheat grown, thrashed, ground, he had just enough for over a loaf of bread. So if you think you're going to get bread out of your backyard, get rid of that thought right now. Store as much whole, wheat if you can crack, and then if you can grind it yourself, that would be better. Flour, if you get flour, make sure that you properly prepare it for long-term storage so you can vacuum seal it and things like that. Let me see here. Holly rabbits don't like the best touches. Should be put in the shady spot when it's too hot. Yes, I do notice that the rabbits do get underneath mesquite and other things um, as much as they can. Funny thing, I have a tower garden, and so the nice thing about it is it has a composter in the middle, and then it has a worm farm, and so you can pull the drawer out underneath, and you've got worm tea that you can use as a fertilizer, a natural fertilizer, and put it back up on top, and then it goes through and it helps fertilize. So everything is 100% organic. But worms here in Texas in a worm tower will fry. So what you see me doing probably twice a day for my worm farm is I'll take an ice cube out and put it on each plant and let that cold water cool down the entire earth farm. I probably take out 50 to 100 cubes of ice and ice down my worm farm, trying to keep my worms alive, and it's something else. That feeds his pigs, mailman. Yes, and that was in volume 2. Yeah, and so now we're in volume 6, and I think that the love of Thad's life is about to get replaced with Mary. He's just been introduced to Mary. So remember that they've saved Mary, Fred, and Jess from the DHS camp, and so I think there's a couple of romances brewing. You've got Fred and Alec, and you've got I think Thad and Mary, and then you've got Sarge and Kay. So you've got 3 different romances blooming there. And who is it Mike is going to hook up with? I think Mike is probably going to hook up with Jess. Okay, let me see. So Dragon Slayer's gone. Oh no, he's saying goodbye to the Alchemist. I can't lose the Dragon Slayer. He's like Triple G Farms, Gosh, I have such great people following. That's fantastic. Jennifer Wolfson, I have, and you are now part of it, the best followers on YouTube. Just great guys and great guys and gals, and they just share an awful lot. Some of them are creators on their own. I want to strongly recommend that those who are creators, please post your own link so that they can follow you as well. And Holly is also in the new one. Thank you. So Jay Creature, here's what's going on. The Austin Police Department, Austin is one of those liberal bastions in Texas. And so of the city council, 13 seats, 12 of them are extremely liberal. We have a semi-liberal mayor now. He was actually my executive director when I was the HR director for the Texas Natural Resource Conservation Commission. And so he was my executive director. And then he went to the Texas Senate, and now he is the mayor of Austin. So he's a little bit less liberal than what we have had. Steve Adler was Steve Adler was probably a Soros plant, but he was totally worthless. So they defunded the police. They've got this civilian task force now that reviews any police aggression and stuff like that. And so there's no police representation on the police accusation board. And so we had the largest retirement ceremony in the history of the Austin Police Department at the end of February. 29 officers retired, and almost all of them right at the beginning of their retirement eligibility. So we have, right now, we're at probably 70% staffing. And so detectives are being taken off of their detective jobs to be put into patrol cars because we don't have enough patrol cars staffed to take care of street crime. You saw the thing about the street racing on one of our major intersections downtown Austin. I mean, there's just all kinds of weird stuff going on. So nobody wants to come to Austin to be a police officer. And their contract, so the city council has rejected every contract between the police union and the city that the police union has proposed. And so what they do, they didn't say, okay, we're going to renegotiate this or anything else. They fired the city manager because of his inability to get a contract from the police union that the city council would accept. So now we're looking for a city manager too. So things are crazy here in Austin. They just, we've got to get some sanity somewhere. But it's definitely not in the city council in Austin. Okay, so Little Lone Prepper said that her mom told her not to buy more food. If two people eat only once a day, they would need enough food for 730 meals a year. That can be true, but remember, I gave you those numbers, and in the book, it's very, very explicit on what the Somalis, and the Somalis are skin and bone, and they are eating less than 2,000 calories a day. So it's not the number of meals that you eat in one day, as long as you get the total of 2,000 calories in that one meal. Typically, we're going to divide that up, probably something like 500, 750, 750 would be your 2,000. So you got the small starter breakfast, and then a midday meal and an evening meal. Now, back in the olden days, in the 1800s, early 1900s, when we did a lot of manual labor, that was just the opposite. We had a 750 calorie breakfast, 750 calorie lunch, and then a 500 calorie supper. So, but as long as you get those 2,000 calories, it doesn't matter how many meals you eat, although it'd be best to separate that out a little bit. So canned beef, pork, very cheap by the case on Amazon this morning. Great. That is fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Well, I'll take a look and see if I can't get a link. Wheat berries are best to buy, absolutely. But you have to grind them. So make sure you have a good grinder or a good mill. And the secret to getting the weevils is if you freeze your wheat and then sift it. Freeze your berries and then sift them. You'll get rid of the weevils. And so you can get the berries, red and white, at the LDF store. So you can get those in number 10 cans for long-lasting, keeping long-lasting storage. Thank you, Jennifer. That's very kind of you. Appreciate it. Let me see. Thank you, Pat. Okay, a couple more, and then we're going to close it down for the night. Next week, we will have, and I strongly recommend you get this book. So next week, we're going to have chapters 9 and 10, and that is going to be the homestead and the bug out bag. I am not going to bring my bug out bag in front of the camera for you. I'll probably try to get a list of things for you, what I have in mind, and you can compare. I will tell you that I do have a fishing net, and I also have what's it called? I have 3 of them. They're automatic fishing kits. So what it is, it's a spring-loaded thing. So you put the hook and weight and everything in the water, and then overnight while you're sleeping, and then if anything nibbles on it, it springs and comes back up and pulls it up out of the water. That way, I'll have fresh fish for breakfast in the morning if I have to bug out. Um, yes, little lone prepper, you and I are kind of the same. I am in what you might call a nibbler. I don't like big meals. I nibble throughout the day. So. Um, a big meal for me is a baked potato. Uh, okay, so you're talking about the Keystone brand of meats. I saw something somewhere about, and I believe it may have been a recall on one of the Keystone meats. So do me a favor, and I don't want to say anything negative or anything because I understand they're an outstanding product. Just do me a favor, do a search, do a DuckDuckGo search, and on Keystone recall or Keystone meat warning or something like that, and check up on that. Just do me a favor, check up on it and be safe. Um, Yes, pancakes are going to be extremely good. They're very easy to cook, very easy to mix. I have a whole bunch of crusties. That's my favorite. Just add water pancakes. And then I probably have somewhere in the vicinity of 2 gallons of pure maple honey. I'm sorry, pure maple syrup to pour over them. Probably about 8 number 10 cans of freeze dried strawberries to add to my pancakes. And then probably 8 cans of freeze dried butter and maybe 8 jars of ghee so that I can have my pancakes. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think they're going to be a staple. They were a staple in the Wild West, believe it or not. Uh, so it's got everything. It's the bread. They got the calories from the honey or the maple syrup. You've got the fat in the butter. Then you've got the fruit with the strawberries or blueberries or whichever freeze dried fruit or canned fruit that you want to use to put with it. Um, okay, we'll take this one from Jennifer, and then we're going to close it down. So Jennifer has a lot of pancake waffle mix, rice, oatmeal, honey, and super. And next working on ghee. Yep. Nido milk powder, very good choice in your milk powders. I think that's a fantastic. Nido Fortificado, one of the better freeze dried milks out there. Dried beans, dehydrated potato slices, and mashed potatoes. Yes, and then you can get the dehydrated not shoestrings, but what do they call them? Hash browns, hash brown potatoes. Get those in the little pint jars, and those are great. You can get them in a large 3-pound bucket for reconstitution at Sam's Club, but I like to buy smaller items rather than big. The one thing that I do with my oatmeal, I think I probably you're probably going to get tired of hearing this. I buy oatmeal two ways. I buy it number one in the packets. I don't eat oatmeal. But I buy the packets of oatmeal because it's extremely nourishing, and that way I have something to give if somebody comes begging to my door. The other thing is I'll get the smaller containers of oatmeal, instant oatmeal. And so I'll put that into Ziploc bags. So I may give a Ziploc bag in place of the package of instant oatmeal, just enough for one serving. But the key there is keep all your Ziploc bags, okay, and then give away the remnants of the bottom of the oatmeal uh, canister. So say, here, this is all I have left, and give that to somebody. The word will get out that they've just got the last of your oatmeal. And, so then you're not going to have that many more people coming and begging from you. If you're giving away the container with the last little bit in it, think of what that does psychologically to people. That means that you're probably giving up the last of what you have. So, there's just one of those little things I'm thinking about doing. So, uh, oh, wow. Yes, we do breakfast for dinner here quite often. My other one is I bought a waffle iron, a camp waffle iron. So this is on one of those, it's got rods that are probably a yardstick 3 feet long, and you put your batter in the middle and close it, clamp it shut with these two rods, and then you hold it in the fire and flip it over in the fire. And so it's like an 1800s waffle iron, and so that's probably what I'll be doing a lot during uh, the SHTF. Huh. Well, I always drank all my Coca-Cola out of I preferred it out of the bottle instead of out of the can. So that may be my problem. Well, at my age, I'm not worried that much about it anyway. Okay. So let me get to, uh, let me get to the book of Numbers here. And then after we get to the book of Numbers, we'll talk about something else. So the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and grant you peace. Now, listen, a couple of things have happened today. I think are critical you take into consideration. I want to urge you to get the food that you can, get the water that you can. So the Chinese government announced that unless the U.S. changes its direction, that we are on a war footing, on a war path. There have been a lot of B-52s that have been moved to the European area, and these are probably the in models that have the Tomahawk cruise missiles that they launched. They can go about 2,000 miles further than the B-52 itself. Our B-52Hs are probably going to be used against China, and the B-52Ns are probably going to be used against Russia. What we don't know is the status of the B-1s and the B-2s. Do not be alarmed. There was a report, and there's a major channel reporting that there are Chinese nuclear submarines off the Pacific coast. I was on active duty in 1971, and there were Soviet ballistic missiles, submarines off the east and west coast and in the Gulf of Mexico. That is nothing new. It's nothing scary. It's nothing to be worried about. Okay. The main thing that I'm worried about right now is the stock market took its dive today. We'll see it almost 2%, almost to the point of automatic shutdown. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We could be right at the verge, right at that tipping point of where we go from a recession into a depression. So please, please get what you can while you can as far as food and storage. If you don't have a means of protection, get something to protect yourself with and some ammunition and extra magazines, and get some training from a qualified professional. Okay. Remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please, contrary to what's going on inside our country and throughout the world, be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. And I want to see you all on the other side. Take care. Bye bye.